Hello again. It's nice to be back home after a few weeks away. Sally and I spent a little bit of time on vacation. Last weekend had the honor and joy of officiating at the wedding of my middle son up in New England. But it's good to be back home again and joining with you once more. There are just a few announcements I want to share with you as we begin. Our schedule, as we all know, has been a bit jostled and amended through all of the COVID situation. But this week, Teresa will be in the office Monday through Thursday from 9 to 2, and she'll be in the office Friday from 9 to noon. We will not be having our administrative council meeting this week. We plan on meeting again in November. On Tuesday at 6, we will have a meeting of our staff parish relations committee here at the church. And we will be meeting downstairs, probably in the fellowship hall or one of the adjoining rooms, 6 o'clock on Tuesday. There are some altar flowers on the altar this Sunday, and those flowers are to the glory of God in celebration of the anniversaries of Tom and Connie and Chris and Danielle. Tom and Connie, 59 years, Chris and Danielle, 2 years. We want to thank everyone that helped out with our super drive-through this past week. If you missed it, we're sorry. We're hoping to do this again. We had 7 different people each make a roaster of their own special recipe of soup, and then some folks gathered here at the church to help as we packaged that up in containers. And then Wednesday, for about 2 hours, we gave out free soup to anybody that drove through. Well, it wasn't entirely free. There was a catch. With your free soup, you were given a container of soup you had to give away. And we've already heard some feedback from folks who were recipients of those gifts and how much they appreciated that. So we want to thank everyone that helped to prepare the soup, package and give out the soup, as well as those who picked it up and delivered it to neighbors and friends. Thank you for your help with this. A stewardship update. We've no longer had our offering plates being circulated from Sunday to Sunday. Instead, you've seen this box either sitting in the sanctuary or passed around the parking lot or inside the fellowship hall as you come in. We want to thank all of those who've continued to financially support the ministries of the church in recent months. We know it's not been easy. An amazing thing happened in March as COVID set in. Giving increased here at the church. For a period of time, we were seeing an increase in giving, and I think some of that was folks who wanted to help and felt helpless doing what they felt they could do by giving. We thank you for that. It's enabled us to retain our staff. There have been no layoffs or firings of any staff during this time. Ministries have changed. Some things we can't do. We weren't able to do our vacation Bible school as we normally would. There are several other large activities, but we are finding new creative ways of ministering through Sunday school lessons online. We're having Zoom meetings with some of our groups within the church. We are having 2 worship services in the building, a broadcast service out in the parking lot, as well as sermons up online. Thank you for your financial gifts. We want to thank you for your faithful stewardship and pray that you continue to support the ministries of Thoburn United Methodist Church. There is a passage from Hudson Taylor, who was a missionary to China. He wrote, "Let us give up our work, our plans, ourselves, our lives, our loved ones, our influence over all, right into God's hand. And then when we've given all to Him, there will be nothing left for us to be troubled about." Thanks be to God. I want to share with you some matters for prayer. I want to begin by saying I have some words of praise for safe travel. In the past several weeks, Sally and I have been from St. Clairsville to North Carolina and back to St. Clairsville and to Vermont and back again. And I want to thank God for many miles of safe travel, for times of refreshing. I hope your eyes have been opened in the past week to see the beauty of the fall colors. God's palette and His creation is so gorgeous this time of year. I hope we can see more than simply, oh, there's more leaves I'm going to have to rake up from the lawn. take a few moments and just thank God for the beauty of his creation. We have some prayer concerns we'd like you to remember. Remember Debbie Miser. Debbie had back surgery at New Albany on Friday of this week. Keep her in your prayers as she recovers. Pray for little Lila Fulton. Lila had been to the hospital and been having some stomach pains. Lila's a first grader. They think they've got things straightened around, and hopefully she's home by now, but pray for the Fulton family. Also pray for Richard Jenkins. Richard is recovering from a procedure he had in recent weeks with some complications. For Tara Boyer, who's been through a very difficult bout with kidney stones. For Bill Moon, who's undergoing treatment. For another Lila M. in a difficult time. For Dolores Custer, pray for her as she recovers from the ramifications of a stroke that she'd suffered. For Mike C. For teachers, staff, students, and families. For doctors and nurses and medical staff. For first responders. For our nation's leaders, that they might perhaps spend more time sharing what they have to offer rather than taking pot shots at one another. And pray for wisdom for each of us as we consider the opportunity we have to exercise our rights as citizens of this nation in our voting. I'd invite you to pause with me now for just a brief moment of prayer. Gracious God, hear our prayers of praise and thanksgiving, of intercession and petition. Here as we lift before you our joys and our burdens, and as we lift before you others we know who bear great burdens. Open our eyes to the opportunities we have to be your light and life to others. Open our ears to hear what you would say to us. Open our hearts to a fuller indwelling of your Holy Spirit, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. My scripture passage for today is taken from the Gospel of Matthew. Now, a similar account of the same event will occur in both Mark and in Luke, but I'll be reading from Matthew chapter 22, beginning at verse 15 through verse 22. Then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap Jesus in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know you're a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. And they brought him a denarius. And he asked them, whose image is this and whose inscription? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. I was spending the weekend at the home of a friend who pastored a small church. Mark, the pastor, was an only child and had recently gotten married. That was a bit of a trauma for his mother. The weekend I happened to be visiting, Mark's mom happened to be visiting also. Now, I'm not always the brightest bulb on the marquee when it comes to discerning subtle undercurrents behind what people say, but I was pretty certain that weekend there was something going on. There was tension in Mark's household. Apparently Mark's mom and his newly acquired wife, Eileen, were not getting along. I think mom and wife were battling over territorial issues. That means Mark. How did I deduce that? Well, It may have been the tension in the air. It may have been the fact that for most of my stay, I never saw Mark's mom and his wife in the same room at the same time. It may have been the way in which Mark's mom and his wife each sought me to take their side in whatever their issue was. I would be sitting in a room and Eileen would come over and say something like, "Tom, can you believe the way Mark's mom is acting towards me? I mean, really, what is her problem? Don't you think she should be a little nicer to me?" I'd just be sitting there attentive, listening as she complained, and then she'd leave the room, maybe head into the kitchen. A few moments later, Mark's mom would approach me. "Tom, I'm so glad you're here. Can you believe the way Eileen treats me? After all, I am his mother. I did raise him. He is my son. Don't you think she should be more respectful to me? I think it's just awful the way she acts around me. Don't you agree?" Honestly, that's the way things went on throughout the weekend, back and forth. One moment, Mark's mom would be trying to get me to take her side against his wife, and the next moment, his wife would be pulling me aside, trying to get me to take her side against his mother. I did a lot of listening and quiet nodding of the head that weekend and tried not to say much of anything in response. Sunday morning, as we were all getting ready for church, the tension was still there. The church was only a block or two from the house, and Mark and I were getting ready to walk over to the church. His mom and wife were going to meet us a little later, and as I said, the tension was obvious. Mark's mom in one room, his wife in the other, each upset, not talking to each other. Apparently Mark was aware of the tension too. He went to kiss his wife goodbye, went and told his mom we'd see her shortly at church. And as we stepped out of the door to head to the church, just before the door closed, he stuck his head back in the house and shouted, more than loud enough for both of them to hear, "And I'm supposed to preach the good news of Jesus Christ after all of this," and slammed the door behind him. Like I said, tension was in the air. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. If you had been among the crowd listening to Jesus as he taught in the temple courts, the passage we read just a few moments ago, you would have realized right away there was some tension in the air. When the Herodians and the disciples of the Pharisees arrived on the scene, you would have grasped right away there was something going on. You see, the Pharisees and the Herodians didn't get along. The Pharisees, religious lay people, were ardent nationalists. They were opposed to Roman rule. They wanted to see a descendant of David restored to the throne to rule over Israel, Judea. The Herodians, on the other hand, supported the family line of Herod. Now, you may recall, if you've read Scripture, that there was Herod the Great, who really was not so great as you read his record, who was on the throne at the time Jesus was born. You remember, he was the one who talked with the wise men and later ordered the babies killed in and around Bethlehem, trying to eliminate the Messiah. And then later you will find another Herod of that family line who is on the throne, who will be the one when Jesus is condemned and put to death. In fact, it was a Herod who ruled when John the Baptist was beheaded. Herod was not even a true Jew. He was from a little region called Idumea. And the only reason he sat on the throne was because he basically paid off the Romans. He was a Roman collaborator. So the Pharisees, who wanted a true descendant of David, a Jewish leader on the throne, and the Herodians, who wanted to maintain the power and the line of Herod's family, even though they weren't rightful heirs, these two groups didn't see eye to eye. There was not much they agreed upon. You would not normally see them hanging out together. Maybe that's why Matthew points out that Pharisees sent some of their disciples to accompany the Herodians when they confronted Jesus. Maybe the Pharisees thought it best that they not be seen in the company of Herod's followers, so they sent some of their followers. By the way, did you notice Jesus isn't the only one who has disciples. Devoted followers who sought to follow him as their teacher and example. John the Baptist had his disciples. Some of them had been encouraged to step out and follow Jesus. Pharisees had their disciples, committed to following them and patterning their lives after their example. Here's a good question. Whom are you a disciple of? Whom are you listening to? Who are you following? Who has the authority in your life? Whom are you patterning your life after? As I said, if you'd been among the crowd around Jesus, you would have picked up in the tension in the air that day as these two groups that normally did not get together united to confront Jesus. You remember the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That seems to be the tactic they were following. They had apparently contrived together to try to come up with what they believed was a no-win situation for Jesus in their efforts to discredit him before the people. They were going to ask him a question, a loaded question. A question with seemingly only two possible answers, and they themselves couldn't come to an agreement on what the proper answer was. It's kind of a trick question. Sort of like, do you still beat your spouse? Well, no matter how you answer that question, it doesn't come out sounding too good. In fact, they so crafted their question that they felt the only response it offered Jesus was a yes or no, and either way they had him. It appears they didn't really want a correct answer. They felt the trick was to press Jesus to have to respond in a way that they could use against him. They picked an issue that could still cause divisions and arguments today in a room full of people. It is indeed a loaded question. Let me test your response. How do you feel about taxes? Now, we're taught there are two things you do not do in polite company. You don't discuss politics and religion. And the question they posed to Jesus impacted both realms. And before they asked their question, they attempted to kind of take him off guard by flattery. Now, Hank Ketchum, who was the creator of Dennis the Menace, once said that flattery is like chewing gum. Enjoy it, savor it, just don't swallow it. And what they say about Jesus as they approach him is interesting. It's interesting because everything they say is true. And they know it to be true. And you have to ask yourselves, if they know it to be true, why did they refuse to accept and acknowledging him rather than trying to entrap him in his words? They said, "Teacher, we know you're a man of integrity. We know you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. We know you aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. You're no respecter of persons." They knew all that to be true about Jesus. Even the crowds gathered there had to take note of such flattering words spoken by this group of united enemies. And then they asked their question. And they only offer Jesus two possible responses so that no matter how he answers, they can use it against him. Tell us, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? Now, you need to know the Herodians were fully in support of paying Roman taxes. After all, it was the Roman authorities who would place their man on the throne. The Pharisees were adamantly opposed to paying Roman taxes. If Jesus responded in favor of paying the taxes Rome imposed, then the Pharisees could denounce him as being disloyal to the Jewish nation. After all, Rome was the occupying force at this time. If Jesus responded in opposition to paying the imperial tax to Rome, the Herodians could report him to the Roman governor for treason and sedition. But Jesus saw through their ploy. He knew the motives of their hearts. He sensed their evil intent. What does it mean to you to know that God sees beyond your words and actions and knows what your true motives are? Jesus even went so far as to call them out in the open in his response. He said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me?" And then he turned the conversation to a direction they had not thought of. "Show me the coin used to pay the tax," he said. And they brought him a denarius. And he asked them, "Whose image is this on the coin, and whose inscription?" And they replied, "Caesar's." And indeed, the denarius of that era, the equivalent of the day's pay for an average laborer's work, would have been a Roman coin with an image of the Caesar on one side, and on the other side an inscription in Latin, usually that would translate Tiberius Caesar, son of the divine Augustus. Now, it's intriguing when he asked them to present a coin that one of those among that group happened to have a denarius in their pocket, because we believe Jesus was teaching in the temple courts. And it's surprising that any one of these religious leaders or the Herodians would have a denarius on them, because after all, as you entered the temple, there were money changers and vendors, and the idea was you were to take the Roman coins with Roman images that were considered pagan and idolatrous and exchange them for Jewish coins that were acceptable in the temple that didn't have the pagan symbols. Such coins were considered to be wrong to carry within the temple. It was violating the prohibition against graven image. So the very fact that when Jesus says, "Show me one of the coins," one of his accusers happens to have one of those forbidden denarius in their pocket speaks loudly. But someone within the group, perhaps without thinking, pulls out a denarius at Jesus' request, and Jesus asks the obvious question, whose image and inscription is on the coin? Why, it's Caesar's, everybody acknowledges. And Jesus says simply, "So give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And our passage closes simply with these words, "When they heard this, they were amazed, and they went away." Jesus answered their trick question in a way they hadn't foreseen that left them speechless before the gathered crowds. Now, this is where normally we talk about where the rubber meets the road. In other words, this is usually where we pastors seek to draw out the lessons for us in today's world from the passage we've considered. And in good preacherly fashion, sermons are supposed to have 3 points. Don't ask me why, that's just what we've been taught as pastors. Well, today I want to do something a little different. While I believe there's a number of lessons we can draw from this passage, I believe there's one main point that we shouldn't miss. In essence, the passage is not really about taxes, or about money, or about clever arguments. If you allow me, I'd like to ask you to follow along as I lead you to the main point that I believe we can take home from this passage. Notice I said the main point. This won't be a 3-point sermon. It has one main point. Now, some of you are already thinking, good, with only 1 point, maybe the sermon won't last as long as usual. I can only say, pay attention, and we'll see. I want you to take a moment, and I'd like to ask each one of you to reach into your wallet or your purse and take out some money. Oh, relax. We're not going to pass the offering plate. Take out some money. Go ahead. Never mind what somebody besides you's got in their hand. Whose picture's on it? Well, I just picked out at random what's in my pocket here, and I've got a $1 bill, and on it is a picture of a George Washington. Some other ones, I'm assuming it's his same picture. Here's a $5 bill. Oh, it's got a bearded fella, Abraham Lincoln. Here's a $10 bill, Alexander Hamilton. Well, I think this guy was in a musical recently. You may pull out coins and find similar images or others. A penny would have Abraham Lincoln, 5 cents Thomas Jefferson, 10 cents Franklin Roosevelt, a quarter, George Washington. You can go on up through the bills. You might find Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Andrew Jackson, Ulysses S. Grant. I don't see him very often. I'd be curious as we look through the offering in the average week given to the church as to whose portraits we would recognize. Now, many people send in a check or do an automatic deposit through the online feature that we have, but if you were to look through the monetary offering that comes in, I wonder how many Jacksons, those are $20 bills, or Grants, those are $50 bills, or Franklins, those are $100 bills we'd see. More often than not, I think Washington, Lincoln, and Hamilton visit church a lot more. Those are ones and fives and tens. At any rate, whose images are on our coins and currency? I'm not talking specifically about individuals, but generally they are deceased U.S. presidents, maybe a few well-known personages of historical significance. Who prints our currency and mints our coins? Our government, the U.S. Mint. So why do we pay taxes to our government? Well, the gut level response might be because we don't really want to go to jail. But the reality is we pay taxes because we do so in return for services received to support our government and programs. Now, just as in Jesus' day, we could argue and debate over how much taxes we pay, or how much is too much, or what we feel are just or unjust taxes. But the bottom line is, like it or not, we're under obligations to pay taxes to the very government that prints and issues the money that we pay our taxes with. Most of us don't want to pay any more than we have to, but we pay our taxes nonetheless. I think it was Benjamin Franklin who's attributed to saying, two things in life are certain, death and taxes. Sometime later, a cynic added, the difference is death doesn't get any worse over time. It may help if we recognize that the images on our currency, for the most part, are past leaders of our government, founders of our nation. And in paying our taxes, we are simply, in essence, giving back to the government some of the currency which it produced in the first place. Whose images are on the currency? Well, governmental leaders. So we give back to the government what belongs to it. Now, you ready for the one sermon point? Whose image do you bear? Genesis chapter 1 we read, after creating all the sun, moon, earth, and stars, vegetation, plants, livestock, fish of the sea, and birds of the air. Genesis 1:26, then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the air, the livestock and all the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Whose image do you bear? If you give, though reluctantly, to the government, you give what you owe. What do you give to God? And how do you give it? Reluctantly? Under compulsion? Or joyfully? And what do you owe to God? And this is far more than a matter of money. What do you owe to the God who created you? The God who breathed life into you? To the God who knew you by name before you were born, when you were still in your mother's womb? To the God who loves, provides, and cares for you? To the God who is the source of every good and perfect gift you enjoy? Jesus says, give to God what belongs to God. What do you owe to God? Only that which is convenient? only your leftovers after you've done what you would with everything else? You know, you and I, we pay taxes on our gross income to the government. Wouldn't it be nice if we could say to the government, tell you what, I would rather simply pay taxes on what I have left after I meet all my other expenses and obligations. Just tax what's left. But it doesn't quite work that way with the government, does it? I'd like to think that when we offer our gifts to God, whether it be placing a check in an offering plate, or teaching a Sunday school class, or giving of our time and talents to serve on a church board, or committee or ministry team, or singing in the choir, or helping with various tasks at the church, or reaching out to those in need, I'd like to think that when we do these things, when we offer back to God our times, our talents, our gifts, our service, that we do so with more joy in our hearts than we have when we sit down and fill out our tax forms for April 15th. I'd like to think that we give to God not simply out of a sense of obligation or blind duty or because we have to, but rather we give to God out of a sense of gratitude and thanksgiving and joy because we want to. I'd like to believe that what we give back to God, our highest and best, and is not simply that which is easy or convenient. I'd like to believe that we give back to God from joyful hearts and not reluctant spirits. I'd like to believe that what we give back to God, we give because we want to. And we consider it a blessing to be able to. Whose image is imprinted on your life? Whose image do you bear? What are you doing to recognize and acknowledge your allegiance to God and His kingdom today? The other day, Sally and I were somewhere, and I was walking back to the car. I'd gone in to get something, and she was waiting for me. And when I got back in the car, she looked at me and she smiled and said, "You walk like your father." I was watching you. I wonder, could anybody catch a glimpse of your Heavenly Father through watching you? The way you live your life, the way you treat your family, your neighbors, your co-workers, the way you make use of your gifts? Can they catch the glimpse of the image of God in you? I want to close by sharing with you a definition for a word. The word is tribute. Tribute. And there are several definitions for this word. I'd ask you to listen to them as I read them. Tribute, one definition, a payment by one ruler or nation to another in acknowledgement of submission or as the price of protection, to pay tribute. 2, an exorbitant charge levied by a person or group having the power of coercion. 3, something given or contributed voluntarily as due or deserved, especially a gift of service, showing respect, gratitude, or affection. Which definition best defines how we give to God? Amen. One other announcement I neglected to share in our opening time was I want to let everyone know that we're planning on how we can begin to sort of find our new normal as a church. Pastor Bill and I have been talking, and currently we're planning, beginning in November 1st, we're hoping to move both of our Sunday morning worship services upstairs to the sanctuary. That means at 9 o'clock, Pastor Bill will be leading a service very similar to what used to be the Shine service with the praise band, appropriately distanced and masked. And then at 10:45, we will have a worship service that I'll lead in the sanctuary with organ, piano. Now, we want to mention that we plan to continue broadcasting on the FM broadcast that 10:45 service, and by having both services upstairs, this may also enable us to broadcast that 9 o'clock service if folks wanted to come and sit in the parking lot to listen in.
One other added piece is we are looking for folks who would want to sign up to help as cleaners. One of the necessities of having two services in the same room in one day is after the conclusion of that 9 o'clock service, we will need a team of folks who can go through the sanctuary, wiping down and sanitizing services in preparation for the next service that will follow shortly thereafter. So if you'd like to help out with that, please call in the office and let us know. But also mark your calendars for November 1st, when we hope to move our services upstairs to the sanctuary. An added side benefit of this will be having both services in the sanctuary will free up the fellowship hall as we begin to look at ways in which we may be able to have some additional opportunities downstairs for our younger people in the coming days. Thank you.